on the move. Little dance step was good. Couple of bounces. Can take it himself and launch long. Inspirational.
Time ticking away. Stop it. For Silvani. What about that?
Mackay. Two in a minute. And they are dancing now, the Blues.
Almost Mackay. Walsh, here he is. Straightens up and has delivered. Is there nothing this young man can't do?
Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie, and this is our 2022 season review. Look, the year didn't end the way we would have liked, but we're here to discuss it all and analyse what went right and what went wrong. But firstly, Lockie, we've been hit with some pretty big breaking news before we went to record tonight, which I think we just need to discuss before we get into that all, because I know the listeners will be wanting to know our thoughts. And it is, we've got some delistings that have pretty much come out of nowhere. The first one is that Will Hayes will not be offered a contract, but probably the bigger one, and no disrespect to Will Hayes, but Liam Stocker has been delisted. I guess, Lockie, what are your initial thoughts? And I guess, what do you make of the decision?
It's good to be here, mate. Firstly, been a couple of weeks, take a week off, which is nice to refresh with things. But yeah, look, not the kind of energy I was wanting to come into this show with. Arguably my favourite player, Stocker. Such high expectations. We love what happened on draft night. And ever since then, you know, nothing but love for the man. So it's sad, but I guess you can, you know, if you think rationally and think through all the reasons why it could be, it's possible to find some reasons why they haven't gone forward with him, I guess. Yeah,
I was definitely shocked like most. I flicked over to Twitter, saw the news, and I had to double take because I was very shocked. Did not expect that to happen, but I don't know. Like, I love the man. I was hoping for the best for him, but I don't know. I know a lot of people are really devastated. A lot of people very angry on the socials, but I weirdly sort of took a step back immediately and went, okay, like, why have they delisted him? And like, all I can think is they've obviously analyzed him enough, and they don't think he's obviously good enough to be on the list. You're not just going to not offer someone a contract. And he's such an interesting guy because we've wanted him to, he's drafted as his midfielder. We've been wanting to see him there. For whatever reason, he's never, ever been given a go there. Even in the twos, he's still been playing this defensive role. All I can think is, does he still not have a tank to run through the midfield? Like, even for VFL level, is that a concern? And then if they don't rate him as a midfielder, don't see him in that block that we've seen someone like Paddy Dow even struggle to break into, well, then you look at our small defensive stocks and, well, he's not the best one-on-one defender. You'd take some others over him. And he doesn't really have that speed and burst as a rebounder. So what is he and where does he fit in? So I guess when you look at it that way, it's a little bit easier to go, okay, it kind of makes sense. But like, it's with a guy with such upside, an early draft pick, never seen the best of him. It's a bit frustrating, I guess. And that's probably why a lot of the fans out there are pretty devastated.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're not wrong. The part that kind of hit first for me, which has often been the case when we've seen a delisting that we're not that stoked about. My first thought was, surely there is so many guys that you would want him on the list over.
Yeah.
And again, I love him so much. Love what he does on the field. Love how he sticks up for his teammates, all those kind of things. We're getting to that stage now where there is less and less guys every year where you kind of like, I don't really see anything there. And then it gets into the nuances of, him, you know, needing that contract and all those kind of things. And like you say, where is he in the hierarchy of midfielders and defenders? And yeah, I guess you can see some logic there. And like anything like this, we only know what we know, and we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, on which we did. But yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate and can like the, I guess, kind of ruthlessness in the list management there. Like, as you're alluding to, saying that there's a lot of people on this list now where every year we're trying to improve that bottom 6 or so, and we're trying to get better. And there's going to be players that we think are probably up to it that we want to see take that next step and be on that list that for whatever reason aren't going to be with us. And these are some harsh calls, and this is one of the biggest and harshest calls I think we've seen. We all were a little bit
for sure
50-50 about saying SPS last season. Even a Mickey Gibbons, I know a lot of people were, and you're hoping it goes the way where for a selfish reason, you're kind of hoping that Liam Stocker doesn't become an absolute superstar because you don't want him to do it at another club.
Heartbreaking.
But yeah, like do you, I guess, and obviously we haven't had a lot of time to think about this, but you start to question, I guess, a little bit of the development of him. Obviously had a couple of COVID years. He had that year away from the club to begin with, multiple coaches. The development has been harsh. Do you think that that's played a role in this, and you, I guess, upset in moving positions and not really getting our inability to get the best out of Liam Stocker?
Potentially. I think you made a reasonable kind of assumption before about the tank, and there being something like that has stopped him from getting to try and break out. Even like you said, even in the VFL, like there was times where he'd come back for the VFL, get dropped, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe this is going to be a chance for them to try something different with him and see if there is going to be a role there. What can he bring? So strange that we just I never saw that, which is what makes you think there must be something there that, you hope that it's not something that the club has done to limit it, but you can't rule it out.
And I guess to go off that point, you've even seen guys like last year SPS, who was almost very similar to kind of like a Liam Stocker, like a midfielder turned into a defender. Even he'd go back to the VFL and play through the midfield. You've seen Jack Martin, who's been more high half forward. He plays a lot of midfield minutes in the VFL. So it's been very interesting. Like I wish they'd tell us why. I get why you wouldn't, because it's probably so harsh on Liam Stocker if the club just went out and went, this is why this player is not good enough. Like that's pretty garbage if they did that. But you also kind of want a bit more clarity, because this is probably the first in a long time of a really harsh decision, or one that we probably weren't really expecting. And I guess there's probably going to be a lot more of these as we, I guess, keep trying to progress and become a better football team, because the club obviously think this is the way to go. This is what gets us moving forward. And it's really sad to see a guy like Stocker go.
I would be devastated to see him running around in other colours. Yeah. So as much as I want the best for him, that would be a sad day too.
Definitely. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on Liam Stocker and the delisting. Why do you think we've maybe moved on? Are you happy with it? Are you unhappy? What are your thoughts? Let us know. We'd love to hear those. But let's move on from that now. We'll definitely probably expand on that in coming weeks with our list analysis episodes going forward. But this is the 2022 season review. And the big question that we've kind of avoided a little bit in the last few weeks of the season, and particularly after the last game against Collingwood, which everyone wants to know everyone's thoughts on this one. And so let's start at the top with it. The big, hard question. And none of this fence sitting that you normally give me, Lockie. I need a yes or no answer. Was this season a success or failure? Which way are you going?
Success.
Interesting.
You?
I say failure.
Love
so
it.
we
Look
disagree,
at
which is good. We never seem to do this.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful time to debate. So I guess give me your reasoning on why you believe this is a success, Lockie. Now you can expand on it, because I agree. It's probably not just a very black and white success or failure. There's definitely parts to it. So give me your reasoning. Let's debate this.
Love it, of course. And yeah, it's not a fence sit, I don't think, to say that there's definitely been aspects this season that have been a failure, but I think overall it's a success. I think for me, the last, how many years? 7 years maybe, we've gone into a season being like, this is the year that something's going to be different. Like maybe ever since we kind of really stripped it back and took Weeders and Harry and Charlie. Every year since then, we're like, something's going to be different. And then we look back on that season and we go, what changed? Not really a whole lot changed. And right here, sitting today, I think we are just in such an incredibly different position than we were 12 months ago. Teague was out the door. The other staff that we had in place at the club, just the feel of the group. Not to mention the fact that we did end up winning more games than we lost. I think that's a success to say that we have completely changed the direction that we're going, and seen a big step forward. Not making finals is a disaster, as we've said, considering the position that we're in. But I still think it's a success for us to say that we are a different club now and we still won 12 games.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, I definitely accept your answer there. But yeah, I guess I respectfully disagree. I think my reasons for it not being a success is, and this is kind of like the harsh thing where I think my mind's kind of changed recently in we're here to win premierships and we have to aim high, and probably the expectation for this year was finals, or at least in that area, which, yeah, we got in that area. But as the season progressed, as we put ourselves in that position, and you even look at the last two games, both winnable positions to get into finals, and we failed that. And so for my expectation and the outcomes that we wanted and that we set for ourselves, and even mid-season, I remember you saying you could see us having like 15, 16 wins out of this. And we went through each of them, and we had reset and recalibrated after results had gone a certain way and said, okay, this is the expectation. And I think as we didn't hit that and we did not make finals, that's a failure. Now, on that, and we've been pretty big on this for years, ever since really starting the podcast. This isn't like and we love this phrase, like a finals or bust, because it's like, well, what does that even mean? And what is a failure? Because last season was a failure. We sacked half all the coaches. We got rid of board members. There was so much wholesale change from the failure that was last season. Now, is this failure like that? No. We've clearly improved in a lot of areas. There's been a lot of good things. It looks like the culture's been reset. We've got a lot of good building blocks. There's been improvements in coaching. So much has been a tick. But I think for me, I'm looking at that overall, did we make finals, as being my success or failure? And that's how I'm grading it. And so for me, because I want to have that high standard, I want to hold us to that. For me, it's a failure.
Yep. Plenty of good reasons there, and I tend to agree with most of it. The part where it falls down for me, the Dogs lose the other weekend, we're in finals. Are you sitting here saying it's a success then?
Probably, because you make finals, and I totally understand.
We didn't do anything different.
I get that, but you still make finals. And I guess that was the expectation, and it's probably not as much as a success. And I think we touched on this heaps in the last few rounds, saying if we lose the last 4 games of the season, we don't probably deserve to make finals, because that's not good enough. And we won one out of our last 5 or 6 or something like that.
Maybe?
It was something insane, because we lost to Geelong. So it's an awful run home after that midway point, and when we were absolutely flying 8-2, 9-3. That back end of the season has been pretty much a failure for me, and I totally understand your argument on that. But I guess if I'm saying that this season, this is my opinion, obviously, if I'm grading this as a success, I just don't think that's good enough. Personally, like, I don't think that it's right to label this a success when we haven't hit the target that we set out for ourselves, and to then bottle the last few games in the manner that we did. It is quite hard for me to sit there and go, and I know this isn't how you're grading it, but go, yep, good job, boys, because I just feel like that would be wrong, personally.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's definitely not a good job, boys kind of moment. Yeah. It's a hard thing. It's like Yeah, I don't know. Some people would argue that the only way to have a successful season, for instance, is to win the flag.
Yeah.
And so if you make the grand final and don't win the flag, is that a success? Some people would argue not. So it's all about what your metric is. Some people would be even more lenient than me, I would assume, and say any progress, like any more wins than losses than the previous year is a success. If you're going up, that's good. I'm not there, but yeah, I guess we all draw the line somewhere.
And I like that, at least when we have this discussion, because I know we've had a little bit of it outside of the pod, is like both of us are still wanting the same thing. And even though I'm saying it's a failure, that's not a bad thing. Me saying that we haven't reached the target of what I set for us, not a bad thing, because you can learn from that and you can build from it. And like I alluded to, it's not this, we've failed, so therefore Vossi has to go and we have to gut the list and go into another rebuild. It's not that kind of failure. Exactly. It's not that kind of failure. It's, okay, we didn't hit this target. What went wrong? Let's analyze that and go from here. But I guess my final rounding out point on that is just that I find it hard to say success when I'm still looking at things so negatively with so many results. But yeah, I guess, again, let us know, did you find it a success? Or did you guys listening think it was a failure? And give your reasons, because I'd love to see this debate in the comments of YouTube, or even tweet at us, email us, let us know that one.
Love it.
So on that, and I feel like we might have some different results in this one, give me your grade for the season. So we'll do the old high school report on this one. So it could be anywhere from an A+ to an F. Give me your report card for how this season went.
It's so vague that we might end up giving the same, or I give a lower grade than you. Maybe we have different expectations of what the results are. Well, I would say Premiership is A++, and that means top 4 is A+. So I would say finals is an A. So I'm going to give us a B.
I'm very close. Logic? No, I get you. I'm the same. It's like, well, a successful season, like the highest you can go is winning a grand final. And then like making the grand final, you kind of make your way down. And yeah, I would have given us an A if we had made finals. Yeah. We didn't. And I probably should be a B. But I think because of, and maybe it's just recency bias on this second half of the year, I think situationally, because of what we built up in this first half and how it went, I've given us a C+. So we're not too far off it. And probably I'll reflect on this with more weeks to come, and it probably should be a B. But yes, I've given it a C+.
Yeah, that's fair. And I just want to throw this, I don't know, thought experiment out there. And I'm not saying I subscribe to this. I just want to put this out there, and maybe some listeners this might tickle something in their brain. And I think we spoke about this on an episode about how different it was, Collingwood's shit start to the season, rise to the top versus us. If we'd lost the season, the first 4 games of the season in this way, and then say basically the season had all gone reversed, we had to win our last 3 games, beat Richmond, then beat the Dogs, and then say we had to beat Hawthorn by 15 points in order to make it, and then we only beat them by 1. I just wonder where our mindset would be at. If we're like, after 4 rounds, we're 0-4, and we're like, this is a disaster, nothing's changed. And then we go and win 12 games, and we just miss out, but still win the last game of the season. What are we saying? I'm not saying it would be different. Just putting it out there.
I really like that point, because it kind of goes to something else I wanted to touch on. So I'll kind of shift that into this thing, which is,
love it.
I think I was pretty frustrated and I go back to the comments. I think it was Vossi that said this. He was like, look, how we play round 1 is not how it's going to be round 23. Like, things will change. We're going to evolve. And I think I'm probably most frustrated about the season because, yes, he was correct. How we looked in round 1 is not how we looked at the end of the season. But I probably didn't get that more linear progression that I was hoping to see. And I get it.
Totally.
That's not always how things are. But I didn't feel like we got the improvement throughout the season that I expected. We started so well. There were so many good parts of this game style. And then everything that seemed to be our best parts, this clearance game and the team defense was going really well. Everything sort of didn't end up how it was. And I probably didn't see the natural progression of that game plan. It didn't sort of work out how I expected. So that's probably the frustration. And I get your point of if you reverse it, is it probably a bit more of a success? And you probably say ultimately it's a failure because, like, why did you start the season so poorly? But I think you can take a bit more positivity because you've finished off so well, and you can kind of take that growth throughout the season and then go, see, look, we started poorly, but we look at what we've built. And then you take that into the next year. When you kind of went high and have then digressed, you're kind of thinking, well, are we going to improve again next year, or are we on this downward slope? Like, I don't think we are, but it's a lot harder to be super optimistic after seeing this sort of downward slope for the rest of the year. What's your sort of thought on if you kind of flipped it?
Yeah. I totally agree with what you're saying. A moment from the preseason sticks with me where it was probably even early in the preseason where you were like, very much like, okay, we've got Vossi in, like we've just changed so much shit. Who knows how long this is going to take for it to start clicking? So then, after 3 weeks of the season, when we're like, oh, look at that, it all clicked instantly. We were like, we'd changed our expectations, which is just what makes me think that if we were 0-4, are we like, yes, the walls are on fire, but also let's give him time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's all hypotheticals.
I think just the hardest thing for me to, I guess, the way you're looking at it is simply in the last definitely 2 games, we put ourselves in that position. And like people have said like, oh, we obviously had injuries throughout the year and all these little things. But I was like, we had the chance. It was on our foot to win this game. The ball was in our hands. We had it. It wasn't as if, and I said this at the start of the season, I said I could cop us not making finals if, we were very close, but I saw all these positive things and we just lost to better teams. But it's like, I didn't think we got that in the end. It was like we lost the games. So I think that's just where we differ at this stage, which is absolutely fine. I'm glad that we're finally disagreeing a little bit and having a bit of a healthy debate on this podcast.
I certainly hope nobody thinks that I'm satisfied, happy, all of those things. I pretty much didn't watch a second of football on the weekend because I could not bear to see football without us in the picture. So I'm as devastated as everyone else listening.
100%. So I guess we've graded the season. We've talked a bit about the players and the team. Let's talk about the coaching. How would you grade, maybe this is just Vossi or the whole coaching group, how would you grade the coaches?
It's a good question. Maybe I need you to kick off this one, because I feel like I'm very aligned in terms of just the season and the coaching as a whole. So I'm keen to hear your take. Yeah,
it's maybe weird of me to rate the coaching higher than the season, but I've given it a B. So not too much higher, but when I was kind of evaluating this, I think this is where I kind of look a bit more into, well, what was he dealing with beforehand? And that's probably where you're looking at all of this saying, well, these guys have not had an AFL standard coach for most of their career, if not all of them, for a fair few of these guys. And they haven't had systems. They haven't had anything. And just the professionalism standards that have changed now for this group. We have a brand of footy. We have all these things that we kind of wanted at the start of the year. It was like, what are we? And we both actually listened back to our season previews. And I know both of us were talking about, like, I just want a brand of footy. I want something to go, that's Carlton. I think we've kind of got that now, this possession-based, high contested footy. And that is nice to have. I know a bit more what we expect to see every week. And so I think the coaching has been pretty good. I can't rate it super highly because obviously there's results that haven't gone our way. But then also I feel like we've been slow to adjust a few times, and maybe some of the mix, particularly the midfield mix, we battled injuries. We struggled to win the clearances at times, which was our contested thing. And then really only the last few games when we were completely decimated, we changed things up. You saw a Doherty go through there. You saw a Setterfield, and it started to look a lot better and things were working nicely. And you just kind of thought, should they have pulled that lever earlier in the season and tried different things instead of just continually going with the same group? And so that's probably why I haven't given them the full marks. But yeah, I've given them a B. What about you, Lockie?
Yeah, I'm pretty aligned with that. I won't repeat anything that you've said. The one thing that I would add is just and maybe it's more of a fan perspective than it is for the players. Like, who knows what the players really think, but just the personas that we had with Bolts and Teagues.
Yeah.
Just how different it is. It just feels like, you feel like the players want to run through a wall for Vossi, and you feel like he'll give them a spray behind closed doors at the right time. And you just feel his passion. And I think, I feel like you'd agree with me that the way he presents himself in the media feels a lot better than it did with the old train. So if not, I think that's also something that gives him some little bonus marks. We love Vossi.
Yeah, I think when you're looking after that game, it took me a little bit to listen, but I really did want to hear what Vossi said in that press conference. And probably the last season when things were going wrong, the last thing you wanted to do was tune into a David Teague presser because you weren't going to get uplifted. It was pretty much a train wreck. Like, unfortunately, his communication, particularly to the fans, just wasn't really there. You weren't hearing the right things. You weren't getting that inspiration that I think you do with a Voss. And there's that part that clearly comes from what he is and what he has been able to get as a player, with obviously with all that success. That makes his profile that little bit higher. But it is the way he speaks and those little things. You are looking for that inspiration and trying to buy in and believe with everything he says. And yeah, it's probably the first time really in my lifetime that I've probably had this coach that you're really looking towards him and hoping that he can fix it, and then hearing all the right things from him. So it's an exciting time. As much as there are a lot of things that didn't go right this year, there's still a lot good. And as much as I'm negative on the season in certain aspects, I would so much rather me calling this season a failure compared to me having to call last year whatever garbage dumpster fire that thing was.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, what about Mickey Molt? He didn't inspire? Come on.
Mate, he couldn't see us losing the game, and that's the inspiration you needed. That blind optimism. I think he genuinely was blind, to be honest, by the end of his coaching career. Some of the decisions he was making. But we move on, and okay, we'll go through, I guess, some positives and negatives from the year. Lockie's, you're a little bit higher on things than I am with your grading this a success. So tell me the things that you think went right this season, or the things you can kind of take in and go, okay, this is what we can look forward to next year because we've either nailed this or it's very close. It's very positive.
Interesting. I hadn't really thought about where I was going to go with this question. The first thing that comes to mind, though, I feel like we've got less kind of positional and player question marks than we have had in memory, not just recent memory. Like there's those few spots where it's like, oh, we could, I wonder if this guy will keep improving and nail that spot down. Could we bring someone in? But man, normally we do this kind of thing and we're like, well, there's 8 holes that we'd love to fill for us to even compete. So it feels like some of those questions are starting to go, which feels good.
Yeah, and even looking at, like, say, best 22s, last few years, there'd been a lot of, well, okay, it's hard to know who's playing this position because you've got all these guys that could play it, but you weren't confident with any of them, where now for a vast majority, you've still got that competition, but it's a lot of, well, he does this really good, but he does this, and it's hard to almost fit a few of these guys in. So I agree with you. Yeah. There's a lot more positives, and that was probably my big takeaway. You know how much I've spoken about this in the past. Long-time listeners would know my little question mark players, and Zach Fisher was the sort of poster boy for that one. Finally, a lot of these guys have shown enough, particularly this year, where I'm no longer going, just show me something. Can you nail down this best 22? Like, they've shown me enough now to say, yes, this guy is definitely in this team moving forward. So that's probably been one of the big ones. And then I guess I kind of already covered it, but another one was just like, we've got this brand of football now, and we've got this system, and now we hopefully can just improve from that going forward, which it's always that difficult thing when you get a new coach, because we've seen this so many times, unfortunately, as Carlton supporters over the past 20 years. You get a new coach in, you're hoping to see all these things go well, and it just doesn't happen for us. Whereas this season, we have seen so much progression. So that's definitely probably been the positive for me. Do you have any other key ones that you've sort of thought of?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. What that leads into is me at least being able to see the clear, you mentioned our progression hopefully being linear earlier. The way that I can see that happening from here, it doesn't feel like a whole lot of dots that still need to be connected.
Yeah.
Maybe that's too optimistic, but you can look back game by game at the ones that we could have won the last 2 games, like you say. All those little things, like a bit more injury luck, just some small progression from different players. Like get McGovern out onto the field, being the All-Australian, like you called that he would be, and he bloody showed it in a few games there. Like it just feels like the path is there. Where like I said, in other years, it's kind of like, wow, a lot of stuff's going to have to go right here for us to compete. But for us, we only have to just be a little bit better, and
like win by a tiny bit more, lose by a tiny bit less, and we make the 8. It's insane. Exactly. The tiny margins that have hurt us this year. And I guess my last probably big positive was, and there's probably still a little bit of this, particularly I found during the end of the season, like we were probably a little bit still reliant on a few individual players at times with the way we were moving the ball. It was very, we need a Harry to take a mark here. We need this. And maybe that's just football. You need your best players to stand up in those key moments. But I think as a whole, I think I was very impressed this year that we seem to move away quite a lot from that reliance on individuals and then playing more as a team. And you can highlight this probably the most with the amount of injuries we had this season and in certain positions at certain times, and then calling and relying upon the depth of this list and the standard not dropping as much as I imagined it would. You look at that defense that got decimated. You look at the midfield that got killed in the last few games, and what they were able to do with just plugging in different players was absolutely unbelievable. And it's so frustrating that we didn't win. We didn't beat a Melbourne, didn't beat a Collingwood, because you beat Collingwood. You beat Collingwood without Kennedy, Hewitt, Walsh in that midfield. That is a ridiculous victory. You beat Melbourne without Chera, Hewitt, Kennedy. That is a massive victory. And we got so close. So at least we've clearly got something going here. And the coaches and the system and how things are playing out is definitely a positive for once.
Love it. And I mean, man. When are we going to sit here at the end of a season and go, gee, we had a good run of injuries this year? Is that ever going to happen? And it's not to say that everything is because of that, but it's just it's true. We never reflect on a season and go, wow, we were one of the healthiest clubs this year. Wow, we were one of the clubs that used the fewest number of players. And I'm looking forward to that day.
Definitely, me too. Let's change tack. Let's talk about the negatives. What were you, I guess, not happy with this season, and what are kind of our areas you think still for improvement that will take us from missing finals to then being that top 4 competing for the grand final?
Well, honestly, injuries is one of them. I think that's something that we're going to have to, for us to get all the pieces together to actually be able to have that super successful season. I think we're going to have to, get at least a little bit of luck there. I think one thing that comes to mind, I've never just been stoked about the way that we are going inside 50 throughout a whole game or through like a patch of games. It just always seems like we just have some guys, and whether it's the guys themselves or whether it's the tactics or the strategy to just kind of get the ball in there, easily intercepted or goes out of bounds, or, we're not in a favorable position. I think that's one area where if we could just get a little bit smoother on that, and maybe it's guys like Walsh and Cripps, like put your hand up. You're the guys getting so much of the ball that disposal going forward needs to be that little bit better. that's something that I was kind of hoping for a bit more of, especially in the second half of this season.
Yeah, now that kind of works and ties well into mine, which was just composure. You saw that
It's the same
in
thing.
those critical games and critical moments. We just lack that composure and footy IQ to either finish off teams when, like, you look early in the season and there was plenty of them, the Hawthorn game, the Port game, where we just let teams back in. You can even say the Sydney game as well. Like, there were a lot where we got out to this massive lead and then it was just like we were holding on and hoping that either they'd miss chances and we just waste enough time to get over the line. And it hurt us eventually. You look at the percentage and then how we end up losing those last few games. For me, it's just composure, and whether that's leadership, like how you fix that is probably the hardest thing. And you can easily look at this and go, we're a very inexperienced team, not only for playing in those big moments, but because we had to use so many players. I can't remember the stat completely off the top of my head, but I know for a lot of this season, we were one of the younger sides out there every single week. It wasn't like, last year or in the years prior where we were being one of the oldest. It was like we were bottom 4 as far as like the youngest are concerned. So is that part of it? Is that just going to improve as these guys get a little bit more maturity and deal with these moments and then are able to learn from that by being in these high pressure situations and going, okay, I can't make that decision under pressure. Like, this is what we do. Is it game plan, understanding, and sort of rewiring these players to go, okay, when I get the ball here in this situation, no, it's not long down the line. It's this. And I just need to trust myself and back myself in. Like, I don't know 100% what it is, but I think that's probably the big thing that just let us down in a lot of key moments this year.
I think it's a great one. The fourth quarter against Collingwood would be the highest pressure quarter that the majority of our guys playing would have been in. So you just hope that, you optimistically think, is that, do they really learn from those situations? And then, the smaller moments even aren't so scary in the next season.
Yeah. Did you have any other sort of negatives or sort of areas for improvement?
No, apart from that, everything was pretty perfect, I reckon. I hope that sarcasm translates. Nothing else comes to mind, though.
Yeah, I guess probably my other one, which will eventually lead into the list management stuff. It sounds so dumb to say this in a way because we've had back-to-back common medalists and we have probably two of the best key forwards in the competition. But weirdly, it comes down to those small and medium-sized forwards. A big area for improvement and probably a bit of a letdown is that we probably didn't get that third forward that I thought we were going to get, whether it was Jack Martin stepping up, whether it was a progression of Honey, Owies, Durden. Obviously, Motlop showed quite a lot in those key moments, but it was his first season, so I maybe wasn't expecting the big jump from him, but that's still an area on our list. I think we need something, and I hate to bring them up, but you look at the team like Collingwood and the way that they play, it seems like all of their smalls seem to step up in those moments. And I don't even want to name them all because they do it all the time. But there's 3 or 4 of them, and you look at the top teams out there. Like, look at this week with like Gary Rowan comes out and wins you a game of football. I don't think we've had that consistency in a lot of ours being able to step up and do that. So that's probably another area that we just are lacking a little bit, and we're maybe a little bit too reliant at times. But I don't know, maybe that's a little too harsh when you've got 2 of the best key forwards that, of course, those guys have got to kick all the goals.
No, it's completely fair. I mean, we're not perfect in any area. So you could pretty much say any part of the team and say it's somewhere where we can look to improve. So, gosh. And who's it going to be? Can't wait to do look forward to next season. We'll get there.
100%. Is there anything you kind of, on a big holistic view, wanted to talk about this season at all, or did you want to move into some of the fan questions?
No, I think we've covered the majority of it, mate. Like I said, I'm glad, not glad. The position that we're in now, I think, is at least similar to where I hoped we would be a year ago. Because a year ago, all we had was optimism and we were just like, we have no idea what we're going to get. I remember you saying to me, I don't even know if it was on the pod or not, but it was like, there's a chance that we could be worse this year just because of all the change. Everything was different. We brought in, new midfielders. Liam Jones was gone. All those things. It's like, who knows? We might not even be as good. What are we going to do then?
Yeah.
So at least we can sit here and say we're better. We're not where we want to be, but the pathway's there.
And like even on that, it's always that hard thing where we've had this list for so long, and every single year it's been, they're going to do it this year. They're going to make that big step, and we're playing finals. And for most of the years, you go, well, at what stage are these players actually just not good? Have we rated this list too high? And I think that a big positive is that for the most part on a lot of these players, no, they are good. We just had some awful coaching, and the culture and the standards and everything that makes a good footy team good, we didn't have. And I'm very hopeful that we're now on this big path. But hit me with some fan questions, Lockie.
All right. Well, I'll be taking them from Twitter as well as Instagram. So thank you to everyone that replied to us on there. I'll throw a few out there for you.
Yeah.
We kind of touched this, I think, after the Pies game, but I think it's a good one to kind of talk about and hopefully be optimistic. So from Wilson, do the last 2 weeks continue to haunt us, essentially becoming the monkey on our back? Or does it make us and become something that players talk about after success, saying from that point on, we made a pact to never let it happen again? Oh, I love the phrasing of that, Wilson. That's good.
I like that. It's an interesting one. If you were to write the Hollywood movie of the coming of age, this is the fairy tale story of a sports team, you write us losing that game by a point. Like that is the perfect script to show us come through and win the grand final. But unfortunately, like life's just not a fairy tale. And I hate to be so blunt and just rip that away from you, but it's just that.
So no.
I guess realistic aspect of it that like I'll fence it. Like, I don't know. I hope with every part inside of me that this is what makes us and go, okay, we got close, but we realized that what we thought was good enough and what we thought would get us to where we needed to be obviously isn't it. And that's kind of what Vossi's somewhat been alluding to, talking about the preseason, like, well, we've got to go harder because clearly what we did wasn't good enough. And I think that's it. So I'm hoping that this is that. And you could see that in their faces. Just, I'm haunted by the images of the Carlton players after that siren, because you look at it and all you can think is they don't want to do this again. And you hope it builds them. But I mean, who knows? There is a world where that breaks them because they gave everything and they're like, well, we're not good enough and that'll be it. But surely that's not the end of us. You wouldn't think. What do you think, Lockie?
No, I'm not going to build on that. I think you've described it well. And my optimistic ass will just say that, yeah, why not? It's the Hollywood movie. The flag. It's the bloody Hollywood movie, Wilson. You bloody nailed it, mate. You nailed it. Tim Gigantor on Twitter. Are we all agreed that Collingwood is now the least liked team? Feels funny saying that after hating Essendon for so long, but the carry-on and trolling from the Pies supporters has really galvanised my dislike into a whole other realm. Not sure if you have an opinion on this one, mate, but I thought it was worth reading out from Tim there.
Very worthwhile from you, Tim. Thank you for that one. It's interesting. I'll try and be quick on this, but their fans and everything I've seen on social media makes me want to throw my phone in the Yarra River and never go online ever again.
Wow.
Just some of the dumbest individuals that have ever graced the earth. I do not understand how some of these human beings exist and get through everyday life. I cannot fathom how they have enough money to be able to, like, how they even earn a living to be able to afford the phone to type on. Some of the shit that they say is the worst.
That's what you really think.
In a good part of this is I feel like it's really fostered this rivalry for probably our generation that, like, we definitely, both of us, I think, hate Essendon more than Collingwood. Would that be correct? I feel like this has brought back what a lot of the older Carlton supporters go, well, yeah, I hate Essendon too, but it's like Collingwood's the one. And I think this and seeing how they react has definitely rejuvenated the rivalry. But I hate their fans almost more than I hate the football club. Whereas Essendon, I don't know, like I watched the girls play this weekend and I've never said so many horrific things towards the television, towards Essendon. And I remember turning to my girlfriend and going, there is something about this club, Essendon, that just takes me to a dark, dark place.
Oh,
and
I know.
I don't know why.
Okay.
Collingwood supporters can say all they want, but weirdly, Essendon takes me to a different dimension. What about you?
Yeah, no, again, you've summarized it well. It's been hard. I feel like with Collingwood, I don't know. Over the last few years, I my dislike of them had kind of mellowed a little bit.
I agree.
Like all of us we were just raised like it was like they are just the enemy. And as I kind of got older and older, I'm like, oh, I don't know. They're okay. There's worse out there. We don't love them, but there's worse, like the Bombers and Hawthorn were getting to me, et cetera, et cetera. But this season, it's just, it's reignited. So,
yeah, we're ready to go next season. Bring it on.
Got one here, kind of similar to what you were saying earlier, but it'd be nice to build on a little bit. So, from Andrew Everly, how do we get more out of our small forwards next season? Oof. So, I mean, jeez.
Yeah.
You hit us with an easy question there, Andrew. Not?
Thanks, mate. You've absolutely destroyed me on this question. I have no idea, so I'm hoping I can talk some dribble in a couple of seconds here and eventually come up with a response.
It'll come to you.
It's hard because they're so inexperienced. Like you look at even Owies, who's older, how much footy has he played? And so part of me just thinks it's going to just take time, which sucks. But I don't know. Like Jack Martin needs to play football because we saw in that Melbourne game just how he can be that match winner. And do you still hold out hope that he's that guy? Or do we need to bring someone else in? Is it drafting another high half forward that can impact games? Do we need to bring someone in from another team? Like, I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to get more out of them, but I know we need it. Do you have anything? Because I'm stumped.
No, I don't have anything. The only thing that comes to mind is sometimes when you look at like the stereotypical things that small forwards do at other clubs, like being, you know, hitting a pack front and center, quick, bang, snap. Like I remember in the Port Adelaide game in the first quarter, there was 2 times within a couple of minutes where the ball was either in a pack or came in long, hands off to Martin, or, you know, Martin just roves it perfectly, snaps it for a goal. It's like those are just like those small, medium-sized forward things that you love. We just don't see that. We don't even see it every game from someone where it's like those classic small forward things. So I don't know whether that's kind of just who they are as players or whether it's positioning and game style and that kind of thing. But I don't know. So I'm trying to think of some players like a Stengel, where it's like you just feel like he's always there. Like if the ball's coming in long and Hawk or Cameron are going for it, he's going to be at the ground there. And if it hits the ground, he's cleaning it up. Yeah. I feel like we need someone to be that kind of guy.
No, I agree. Like you look at like your Papleys and your Camerons, like the top, always the ball is anywhere near them in like 10 meter space. They're dangerous and you're worried about them. We don't have that just yet. And I agree with you. I think positioning times with these small forwards, they've not been front and center. They've not been where they've needed to be. And I think they need, and I don't know if this is just something that evolves or whether it's there, but it's like that urgency to just, I want to take that moment and I want to kick the goal. We've talked about this for years. Yeah, it's who wants to actually go for it instead of, I'll handball it off to someone else. I'll try and find the perfect opportunity. No, take it. And I've probably thinking real recency bias of the Collingwood game. I'm very optimistic that Motlop is that guy. And you think about like that. Was it the Sydney game that he almost kicked like 6 goals in a quarter from every single touch that he had? Like, it was just insane that the guy has some sort of X factor where when he's around it at times, he just looks like he's about to break a game open and kick so many quick goals. So it might just be Motlop and he just needs to be 24 right now. I don't know what
Please.
it is, but yeah, I think that's definitely that big area for us.
Yeah, love it. No, we can be patient there. So many good questions, but so many of them really closely relate to our awards and the like.
Yeah.
So maybe one more, just because we probably won't cover this because the awards tend to be a bit more positive. But this one from Anthony, the Lone Wolf Ant, who we love.
Yeah.
He's asked what player exceeded your expectations, which might come up in our awards, but who did not?
Oh, that's a good question.
Is there a player that comes to mind when you think about, them being the underperformer? Let's throw someone under the bus here. Let's name names, name and shame.
I'll throw a couple under the bus, and the good thing is that they're players that I love dearly, so I feel okay being able to do it.
Right.
Probably Adam Chera is one particularly. Didn't have the worst year, and if you look at the voting that we've done this season, he was high up in our vote count, which is for MVP medal, which is quite surprising. But him coming in, I was very optimistic about him, and I guess on reflection, what's made me a bit disappointed was we sent out the votes, the questions to the fans saying who's like the most improved, who's your best recruit, and all these little things. And Chera didn't get votes. It was, you have the other recruits like your Lewis Youngs and your George Hewitts that took majority. And if you ask me the question, who would be the best recruit this season? It'd be like, line ball between Chera and Hewitt probably. Both of those unbelievable. And for Chera to not even be in the conversation is a bit of a disappointment. I know he's had those continuity issues, and we definitely saw a lot in that last game when the game was there to be won. And he's so young, and I think he still will show a lot. But probably that little bit of disappointment where I was hoping he'd be that perfect outside spark for us. Probably just didn't live up to my expectations so far.
That's a great answer, mate. And it's good because how is this man 22 years old?
Yeah.
23 in a month. Dumb. So young. So still so much room to grow, which is great. So that's optimistic. But for me, we're going to have to go full circle to the start of this pod because, like you said, I listened back to where we were at the start of the season, and Stocks was my player to watch for this season.
Yeah. Oh no, Lockie. And you'll be watching him play for...
Who's it going to be? Go on.
The Aspley Hornets in the NEAFL, mate. That's where he'll be, unfortunately.
Oh, the Aspley Hornets. Shout out to Harris Andrews. Yeah. So that was the thing. The expectations, I guess, were high about what we could see from him this year, and didn't deliver. So it's a shame.
I feel like so many of the other ones you can name were just all guys that were injured, like your Mitch McGovern. We can go to my prediction of I had him in the All-Australian 40-man squad and plays about 4 games of football. And so you just don't get
good
that.
Ones, though.
Oh, look, if you're going off those 4 games compared to anyone else's like 4 games, mate, he's in there. But I think that's another disappointment where it's like, we had so much high expectation for him. But yeah. I mean, you could probably name quite a few, but probably the good thing on that is I don't think there's a lot of high caliber players that had set a standard. It's a lot of the like Liam Stocker guys, like your Paddy Dowes and those kind of players that maybe just didn't take the step yet that we were thinking.
Yeah. Another player that comes to mind with like the injuries is like Zach Williams.
Yeah.
I mean,
100%.
It felt like he was getting into some form and it was like, oh, okay, maybe he's actually going to get a good run at it. Doesn't get a good run at it. Didn't meet expectations. So, yeah, I think that covers the questions, my man.
Well, I've actually got one more for you, which maybe ties in well because one of my mates had sent this one in and he was very adamant that we answer this question for him. There was almost even if I did this, he may get a tattoo of the navy blue corner somewhere on him. So
we're due for a tat.
We'll see how this progresses. So hopefully, fingers crossed. But Casey Mitz asks us. He's basically... He sent in a big question, so I'll try to put it in just a little bit of a format for you, but
all right,
kind of maybe alludes to a conversation that we had at stages at the end of this season, talking about our shift in expectations. And he kind of had the question he really wanted us to answer, which was, were our expectations simply just too high? And that's why that we are so disappointed in this season, because we started so well and had such a big start to the year, and then we shifted the expectations. Like, is that an issue? Are we just where we are? And are we kind of this, like, not maybe mediocre, but like middle of the range team, and we just thought we were better than we were? Or should we be aiming higher, and should we be having those finals aspirations?
It is a ripper question. So there's so much to it, and so much of it is about what we've already discussed. I think it all kind of weaves in, because yes, we did change our expectations, which I think no doubt we needed. That's what you need to do. You can't sit there and go, well, we can just win another 3 games now and that's good. That's not a thing that you can do. You have to change those expectations. One thing I'll throw out there, because I mentioned this before we started, we recorded that season preview the week after the Melbourne win in the preseason.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that got us a little bit up and about at where the expectations could be. Yeah, I think there's a little bit to that, because I was optimistic that we would be able to make top 8 halfway through the season. Thought we'd be able to make top 4. I don't have a clear answer for it, but I think there is a lot in that. So I'll see what you've got.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's just I don't think that like expectations are a bad thing, and us saying and setting what I think we all kind of believe as a realistic goal of finals isn't too far. And we said that before the start of the season. I know, you can get a little bit carried away and go, oh, well, now it's top 4 and now we've got to win a final and all these little things. But you can keep trying to lift and make that your target. But I think at least baseline was always there. Make finals. Just make finals. That's the tick. And yeah, the start of the season, the results maybe cloud things a little bit, because we've had the discussion talking about, well, we only just sort of played a couple of good quarters against Richmond, got over the line, just held on against the Dogs. Josh Dunkley kicks a few of those goals. We might lose that game. Hawthorn, Port, even Sydney, like a lot of our wins, we held on. And then it was not a great showing, but we then had a great last couple of quarters against a North and then an Adelaide. And it's another game I'm trying to think of. I can't think of it, but it was another similar kind of thing where we weren't switched on the whole time. And then all of a sudden, bang, the game's been won in a quarter. And we were never perfect. And maybe, this is just where we're at. And obviously we are, because we didn't make finals and we made a lot of mistakes this year. But I just don't think that setting the expectation is a bad thing. And I think that's probably just where I sit. I sit on it. Like, the higher you set the expectation, if you don't make it, there's disappointment. But I never really believe that it's kind of like an unrealistic thing. And for us to improve, we need to be setting that benchmark. Like, we need to go back to, this isn't good enough. We're here to win premierships. None of this, Brendan Bolton, wins don't matter. We're just about improvement. Like, improvement's good, and I'm happy that we've improved this season. But like, I'm even thinking, like, what are our expectations for next year? And maybe this is too far, but I'm thinking, let's almost act like we made finals this year. Let's not have another year of, well, we've just got to make finals. Let's go higher. Like, why aim for the same thing we did last year? Why not try to take that next step again? Because you got so close. Like you've said, optimistically at stages, like, we were Dogs not kicking a couple of extra goals away from making finals. So let's shoot for top 4. Now, it's not a failure if we don't make top 4, if we still make finals, but let's try and make that jump. And I think that's just how I'm kind of seeing everything at the moment. Yeah,
that's super fair. Maybe one kind of differentiation to make as well is about, like, what's a goal, and then is an expectation something that you expect to happen? Like, is that what we're talking about as an expectation here? Because I wasn't it wasn't a guarantee. I didn't feel like it was a guarantee that we were going to make finals this season. It was just what I was hoping. Like, that was the goal, if that kind of makes sense.
No, I get you.
I was expecting to improve, but
Mm.
the goal for me was to make finals. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm not expecting us to finish top 4 next
Mm.
year by any means,
No.
but I am expecting us to
Yeah.
make finals.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to me thinking we put ourselves in that position mid-season and even with 4 or 5 rounds to go that this is a clear, simple path. We've done all the hard work, finish it, because how many times did we not even jokingly say throughout this season, like, we're a finals team? How many? It's almost like, are we winning a final now? Like, where are we getting to? And I don't think that was unrealistic at any stage.
Yep. No, it's very fair. We're in agreement.
Sweet. Great question, Casey. So let's take us to revisiting our predictions from the start of the year.
Oh, yeah.
To try and get through them quickly, we'll say a couple of them. We'll start with the hot takes and see if any of these actually came true, because mine certainly did not. I had a couple.
We suck at hot takes.
No, but see, the good thing is we're not trying to be this, we'll win we'll win more games than we did last season. Like, we're not here trying to genuinely predict the easy stuff. We're here shooting for the moon. We're going for it. And that's why it's a hot take. And mine was Corey Durden to be the second highest goal scorer, which for the second year running did not happen. And I'm pretty much retiring that one now. No more rehashing. No. That's out of here. Sorry, Corey. You've let me down too many times, mate.
He's going to do it next year. Now he's going to do it.
Will. Just to spite me, I think. And another couple I had, which I said that Lockie O'Brien would become what Carl Amon was for Port in 2021, going off the Michael Voss influence. And I think he improved, but maybe not to the level that I maybe ambitiously set for him.
Mate, I can't believe you haven't read this one out. You said that Walsh and this is still
Go
TBD.
for it, mate.
And a few of mine TV. I'll give you the spotlight here. Walsh and Cripper top 10 in the Brownlow.
Mate, very likely still at this stage. I reckon that was a good one. And we'll get to a couple of yours as well. I'll quickly round out the last of mine. Obviously, Mitch McGovern did not make the All-Australian 40-man squad. If you could go off those games, God, he would get in there. And then my other one, fortunately, didn't happen. Maybe looked like it at some stage, though, which was that Jack Carroll shows quite a lot throughout the season and ends up basically being one that we lock in best 22 for 2023, which did not happen, unfortunately. But Lockie, do you have yours all written down?
I think I have them all written down. But what did I have? I said we were going to get Harry back-to-back Coleman, and he was going to outscore his previous tally.
I don't mind your shout, because we technically still got the Coleman medalist, so I'll almost pay that one. But that was a big shout.
That's one from one. And then I had Ed Curnow best clubman, TBD.
Oof.
TBD.
Mate, he was the runner on the weekend in the VFL, so maybe he gets that award. Who knows? Does a lot for us.
He just? Man, how good was Jack?
Couldn't play, but he's the runner. He was good. Get him in. Lock for 2023.
This is the thing. I knew we were going to do this episode before all the finals and stuff happened, because I called the drawn grand final. That was I do remember. That's still going to happen.
You had this dream where you had like Brisbane in there. You had Charlie Cameron controversy. There was a reversal of a free kick, and there was a drawn grand final. You said it would be Melbourne Brisbane just to kick things off here. So I'm very excited for that one, but you got to say that this one's a big one for you. You predicted 3 All-Australians. You ran that prediction back.
Yes.
You didn't get the same players correct, but I'll pay you the All-Australian. You said Weeders, Walsh, and Cripps would get there, but, mate.
Oh, Weeders.
You predicted the 3 All-Australians. I'll let you accept your award for that one.
I appreciate that, mate. And this is why you should be running Dirds back next year. Just run back our takes until we get there.
Till it happens. And then your last one, though, and this, again, we still don't know, could happen.
Oh, yeah.
Was that the biggest fish that is moved in the off-season will come to Carlton. Now, maybe this is part of Nick Austin's plan. We get rid of Liam Stocker. We get rid of some of these players you really love because we're ready for that big fish. And no, it's not Zach Fisher. He's locked away. There's another one coming and swimming down our stream.
You know why? I needed to free up the number 13. So let me just do a quick little look-see here at
Is there any
who the best number
13s
13
that
is.
want to come in?
Oh, there it is. I feel like Goz on GMZ, but Clayton Oliver to Carlton next season.
Oh, mate. Remember when that was genuinely a thing a couple of years back? Maybe he wants out. Who knows? Melbourne in disarray. Luke Jackson going. He's had enough. Who knows? Big fishes could be moved. Let's go to this is a fun one. We'll go into players to watch. I had a couple here. I'll start with my maybe ones that didn't go too well, which was David Cunningham. I would like someone to keep watch on him because I'm not sure this man exists still. I was very fortunate, though, to see him at the Melbourne game in the stands. So take his photo off the milk cartons. I found him. He's still alive.
He's been found.
But yes, bad season for him not being able to get out on the field. Other one was Brody Kemp, who we didn't really see a lot of him, unfortunately. So another one that didn't work, but I'm happy to call this one a tick. I said Matt Kennedy, and maybe I went almost too big on this because I did listen back and I likened Matt Kennedy to a potential Ollie Wines-like season under Avosi. Thought he'd take that next step as that tough inside mid, seeing what Port Adelaide did, but I'm pretty happy to take that one, Lockie.
You've gone from D-list the man to he's going to win the Brownlow in a few short months.
Lock him in.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Stocker before, which will put a tear down my face. Yeah, and Durden was another one that I had to watch. And look, good season for Durds.
Yeah.
He progressed. It was his first full crack at it, which was good. But, you and I, we had some high hopes for the man to, I don't know, kick 40 goals. Is that what you were thinking he'd do? So it's next year. It's inevitable.
Next year is breaking the ton. They heard it here first. Now, this is probably my favorite thing to look back on is the players that were under the pump at the start of the year and now reflecting and seeing how their seasons have gone. Has it been positive? Has it been negative? Okay, I'll start with some better ones because the first one on my list might not go down too well. But I had a couple of controversial ones under the pump. I'll start with Caleb Marchbank. Now, a player that I have a lot of love and admiration for. But my under the pump was, mate, he has not played football in like 3 years.
Yep.
Can he get out on the field? And I was very worried that if he didn't get any continuity and he still had a lot of injury setbacks, that he was out of contract and that'd just be him done. Because how many times can you keep going with the same player that gets injured? I'd say that's his comeback at the end of the season and the form he's been in has been so positive that you can take this man out of under the pump. And if he's able to stay healthy over the off season, the man could be, hot take, All-Australian next year.
Oh, he said it. So he's not under the pump anymore? Is that what you're saying?
He's holding the pump now, mate. He's not under it.
Love that.
He's standing on the thing.
He's all over it.
My other one, I had another one, which was Zach Williams. Very similar reasons, was high-paid recruit. I think he's still a little bit under the pump. Like we saw so much in that last game of football and when he was playing, but again, he's still got those injury concerns that we need to get a season out of him because we haven't got that yet. And so I'd say he's still somewhat under the pump.
Did you write down my under the pumps?
I wrote down yours if you don't have them there, mate.
Thank God. I didn't listen this deep.
Good to see that Lockie's a big fan of the Navy Blue Corner. He won't even listen back to his own podcast.
I was thinking that we were in good form in that episode, but it was getting me too sad thinking about all the optimism.
Well, I'll tear you down because my last one was Lockie Plowman, who I sort of said, like, are we going to go past him this season? And I think we kind of have, unfortunately. So he's probably still under the pump. He's still in that position of there's too many guys that have maybe gone past him now. But is that a good thing for Carlton? Probably. Now, yours,
absolutely. You
had Jack Martin as one. So again, in this realm of injured players, still well and truly going to be under the pump, Lockie. Do you have anything for Jack Martin?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I don't know what what the goal is for this this category? Like, is the goal to
No
pick someone
calf
that-
injuries, for God's sake. Give this man a calf transplant. I'll donate him. I don't probably don't go to me. I'm very injury prone. Find someone. Find the best calf doctor in the bloody world. Pay him all the money possible. We've got these bloody $200,000 treadmills at the football club. Whoever's dishing those out, pay for some calf surgery for Jack Martin. Seriously. Get the rich guys at this football club to donate something for this man.
He's such a tease, isn't he?
Oh,
Why does he do this?
it's frustrating.
He is such a tease. He'll probably be
another
my guy
one
next year as well.
Well, you're lucky one of these players had a bit of a good end to the season because, well, one of the other ones was Paddy Dow, who, I guess, what do you make of him, Lockie?
There's going to come a point where I guess he's not going to be under the pump because it's like there's just no expectation. Well, yeah, under the pump at the Hornets. No, but like if we just run it back with him next year and then he's not named round one, like is anyone going to be still in his corner, like asking for him to come in? I don't know. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen with Paddy Wow.
Yeah, and I guess your last one was Will Setterfield, who probably turned in the space of about 2 to 3 games, completely turned his career around. It's that recency bias, mate. You end the season strongly. Exactly. You play in that inside midfield role, and now we're all again optimistic and back on the Will Setterfield train, which I think I board and sort of get off every single couple of weeks. The amount of times I'm like, Setterfield's back, and then the next week it's like, and Setterfield's out of the team. That was one of the worst games I've ever seen from a footballer. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting 2023 for that man there.
But maybe this is where like we change the narrative around this kind of this topic, because it doesn't what does being under the pump mean? Does that just mean that you're not like an out and out best 22 walk up every week? Because I hope that next season there is going to be, a lot of players in the best 22 that every week need to perform in order, because there's so much pressure in the twos. So, Will could be in the best 22 round one or not. Either way, he's going to be under the pump and he's going to need to perform every week, or else we're not seeing him.
I think some of these, like a lot of them are kind of like, say your Setterfields, Dows and Marchbank. It was kind of like, well, if they don't perform this year, if they're injured, that's their AFL career done. And so I think that's kind of the aspect of like, these guys need to show something this year or they're in trouble. And then there was some other, like a Jack Martin and a Zach Williams, where it's like, mate, we've paid a lot of money on these guys salary wise. You need to show something to prove yourself. So I think that's kind of how we've probably interpreted it at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see if we change that in the off season and evolve that around. But I always like to scratch back to that and see if anyone has really outdone themselves. And with that, let's go into the most improved. Lockie, you went big Mitch McGovern. I went Lockie O'Brien. Would you take any of those as your most improved?
I think you can make a discussion for Lob, not make an argument for Lob. And fuck it, you can make an argument for Mitch. What are we saying here? Mitch McGovern is in the under 6 games All-Australian team. Is that something that we could map out? Maybe we'll do that.
I think so. Let's do that. Let's go under 6 games All-Australian team for this season. Much like, Will Setterfield potentially not being eligible for the bloody VFL.
Exactly.
We're getting the eligibility in for our All-Australian team. You watch out. But no, I think as far as improvement, it's insane. Like, he's kind of gone from, what is he? Is he even going to be on this list in a couple of years, to, even with his injury, pretty vital cog in this system and team. Like, even when he was out injured, everyone's going, God, we need Mitch McGovern back in this team. We need that interceptor. So it's insane the kind of what he's done to turn his fortunes around. Let's go into our ladder prediction. Both of us said 8th. Well, we can fuck that off. Let's move on to the next one.
Pretty close.
Very close. Leading goal kicker, both of us said Harry, which makes sense. Obviously, Charlie shocks everyone and wins that. We'll go into some non-Carlton ones before coming back. Wooden spoon. I said Hawthorn, you said Adelaide, which is very interesting. Neither happened. Then
Not
Premiership,
bad.
I'm out of the competition. I said the Doggies, even though I probably wanted to say Brisbane, but I was too bit scared to roll that one back. But you've said Brisbane, and they're still in this. You said that defeat Melbourne in the grand final after a draw.
After a
So
draw,
let's.
exactly.
It's still alive. Anything could happen. Obviously, there's a few that still have not happened. Like Brownlow, you said Christian Petrarca, which probably isn't happening. You said Caleb Strong's a smoky, not happening.
Yikes.
I said Jack Steele. Maybe
Bad.
if he didn't get injured,
Oh, no.
but probably not. Probably not.
Hate it.
But I will say right now, we know I'm a little bit of a gambling man, and I didn't say he'd win,
dabble.
but I still have that $10 on Brayshaw. I had him at $51 at the start of the year.
Wow.
At one stage, the cash out was like 110. I said, no, we're riding this home.
Absolutely.
Mate, if he wins, does that count as a predicting the Brownlow medalist?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the whole point. That's why you just got to throw 30 names out there. And then we just take that little. We need to get better at that. We need to get better at quantity over quality.
That's all right. I'll edit over that. It'll be like, and I reckon Brayshaw will win the Brownlow. And we'll just clip that out and chuck it out there. And then the John Nichols medal winner, you had Jacob Wiedering. I had Paddy Cripps. I reckon I'm on there still. I reckon I could get that one.
So I actually reckon it's going to be Sardi now. But I back you. I get you made your prediction months ago. I'm going to make mine 3 weeks before. I'm going to say Sardi.
Well, you can't be just changing your predictions, mate. You got to ride Jacob Wiedering till the end. But no, I agree with you. I think Sardi's a red hot crack. It's probably going to be one of the first in a long time that could be a lot of players. And that's the interesting part. Definitely. But let's get into the season awards, probably to wrap this one up. Let's go into most improved. We gave our predictions. Now it's time to answer who it was. Let's go to the fans first. I tabulated so many of these votes. And thank you again for all of them. Absolutely love to hear from you guys. We want to make you guys apart from this. And you came out in droves and you gave, well, actually some of these do a little bit of a placing in third place for most improved. We had Big Young come in at 12 votes. We had Kennedy in second on 14. And this was actually a fun one to do because I was adding one vote onto each player as I was going up. And it was like one man went out to a big lead. The next guy comes up and, mate, votes were going everywhere. But your winner with 21 votes is Matty Cottrell as the most improved. Lockie, who would you give your award to?
Wowee. Well deserved, Cotters. I'm going to go Fish.
Yeah. Well, this is who you gave. We both gave probably the mid-season part of it. I thought about it, and maybe again that last few games of the season he maybe dipped a little bit. Right. I've been wrapped up in the Cottrell fever, and I've given mine to Cottrell. I think because he's gone from literally could be delisted to now almost like best 22 lock. Like I find it hard to do my team and be very stiff going, oh, I want Cottrell in there, but like, does he get in there? He's done incredibly well to turn his AFL career around. And so I think I've given it to him because of that. But it's surprising that so many have chosen Kennedy there, who I guess I didn't necessarily think of, but when you put a bit of thought to it, his season was really, really good.
Definitely. And this isn't one for the podcast listeners, but yeah, I kind of had, if you had Cottrell down here and Fish here at the start of the season, I feel like they've kind of both like I agree. Cottrell's like on the fringe now, but Fish, like we didn't know whether he was going to be best 22. He wasn't going to be delisted, but he wasn't around it. And now it's like, there's a space for you, my friend. But both good. Both good.
And probably went to a higher level than Cottrell, which is potentially harder to get to. So I love that one. Best recruit, probably a really easy one. Second place was Lewis Young. We've then got George Hewitt coming in with a whopping 53 votes compared to the 10 that Young copped as the best recruit. Assume that's the same for you, Lockie.
Lock it in. We love George.
He was unbelievable this season and sorely missed in those last few rounds. Then the next one we've got is best game. Now, In second place from the fans was Sydney on 22 votes. In first place on 36 was Richmond round 1, which it kind of hurts that we potentially peaked at the first game of the season. I wish it could have been a later game, but what have you chosen as your best game of the season?
Yeah, they're the two standouts by far, but it's got to be Richmond. I think that's going to be an all-time game core memory for footy, I think.
I think so. Just that monkey off the back to start the season in a positive fashion. The optimism was high, and that was a fun one to attend.
And so many, there was just so many moments, like so many memorable moments in that game as well that stick out, which I'm sure we'll get to. But
you've segued perfectly in because
you're welcome.
Is best moment of the season, and the two main ones that were voted by the fans both came from this game. Which you might see some discrepancy in the voting for this one. In second place on 4 votes was Zach Fisher's goal in the last quarter that almost tore the non-existent roof off the MCG. The grandstands were almost crumbling to the ground in that one. But yes, that was 4 votes. The winner on 49 votes was, of course, Sam Doherty's goal in that same game. Lockie, your best moment of the season?
I feel like I could do like a top 10 moments of just that game because it was like you have Hewitt's first goal for the club, Chez's first goal, Martin's from outside 50, Cripper from 50, obviously the Fish one. But the Doc goal is the moment of the season for sure.
Yeah, like I'd love to give it to Fish because I did the Ultimate Warrior sort of shaking of the ropes on the barricade in front of me on Stadium 2. I was going absolutely ham on that thing, helping shake the MCG. But it's so hard to go past, just Sam Doherty in that goal and just what it meant for all the non-football reasons. Just unbelievable. Like you watch that back and every single time you just get a tear in your eye. It's just absolutely beautiful. And that's what footy's about. So we love that. Biggest surprise is the last award here, which I love throwing out because you get a big variety of different answers because it literally could be anything. Big shout out to Nick Wishart, who threw his out as Daniel Harford getting a 2-year extension with the AFLW team as coach, which I had a bit of a chuckle at. But the fans voted and they've given second place to Lewis Young's rise and his season as a whole from behind, and Oscar McDonald. What are we getting here with pick 53 to becoming a big staple of this team? But the fans have voted an overwhelming winner, basically just saying Charlie Curnow's season and what he was able to do, winning the Coleman medal. Absolutely insane. Lockie, what was your biggest surprise of season 2022?
That was it. I just wrote down Charlie Coleman. Yeah. There's just no way. There's just no way that anyone could have seen this coming, except for one good punter on Twitter, which I did see. I don't know if you and I spoke about this or not. I think maybe we did at the game. So one man had the foresight that Charlie would make this leap, but definitely the biggest surprise for me.
Yeah. I'm also pretty confident in saying that our mate, Big Pommy in Oz, also said that Charlie would definitely be our leading goal kicker, if not Coleman medalist. So a big shout out to him as well. Big Charlie Curnow stan that we love. So there's a couple out there that are just a lot smarter than us, Lockie. We need to get our predictions a lot better for next season. We got to hit on these. But that was definitely mine. I thought I'd throw another one in there just because I felt like there were so many that were clearly the answer. And a big surprise for me was just our apparent depth and resilience when faced with mounting injuries. Like you look at Lewis Young stepping up, Setterfield, Doherty late, Marchbank, Sam Durden getting thrown in with like one game of VFL under his belt, the rise of a Jordan Boyd having to throw him in. I didn't expect us, if you told me this last year, all these players would be out. How would you perform? I'd be like, oh, we're stuffed. Like, that's just, we cannot perform to any AFL standard because we couldn't before. Those players out would be disaster. That was a big surprise for me. And that gives me a bit of hope going into next season, seeing what we're able to do in those hard times. If we can get a fit list together, I'm rubbing my hands together over that. probably the last thing, because I completely forgot this. So let's jump back to talk about this season, and maybe this rounds this off nicely, kind of comparing this season to previous and trying to get a bit of a holistic view leading up into our list management and seeing maybe the areas we need to improve to. Let's start to look at some stats here. So if you're watching on YouTube, I will have put these on, hopefully, if I remember. They'll be on screen now. If you're listening, apologies if it's a lot of stats coming at you. I'll try to make it as easy as possible. But here we go. For season 2021, we had 8 wins. This year, 12. Improvement. Last year, 14 losses. Yep. This year, 10. Percentage jumped from 88.5 to 108.3. Went from the 13th position to 9th. Probably the disappointing part on this is that at the sort of mid-season review, we were also on 8 wins, and then to only get, I guess, 4 out of those and get 7 losses is that disappointing part. But what I'm really interested in is seeing those sort of key metrics and seeing the difference. So let's get into that. So this is a big jump from last year. We went disposals. We ranked 18th. This year, 2nd. Disposal efficiency was 16th. 5th this year. Kicks, we were 13th. We were 2nd this year. Handballs, 17th. 4th this year. Kick to handball ratio, which was something that was talked about a lot, that we kicked the football too much. It was 1.7 last year, 1.5 this season. Contested possessions, we were 15th, now 2nd in the competition. Wow. Uncontested possessions was 17th, now 4th. I guess, does that give you a bit of optimism in just the overall improvement from last year?
Yeah, well, if you can... if you think that we're the same side that was going out there last year, it's night and day, isn't it?
I think, again, I guess a disappointment is I've still got the stats up from the mid-season, and in pretty much all of them, we dropped from 1st in disposal to 2nd, 3rd in efficiency to 5th, 2nd in handballs to 4th, 1st in uncontested possessions to 1st to 4th. So we did drop off a little bit. Obviously, why our wins went that way as well. But I do have some other stats to go through. Let's talk about the center clearances. We ranked 15th last year, 7th this year, which dropped from 1st in that mid-season part. Is that because we lost Pitternet? Did that play a role? Obviously, midfield was something that struggled. So that's probably another key area to look for improvement. And that's why I like looking at these stats, because you can kind of tell a little bit from them and go, okay, this is something that dropped off. This is something that is still clearly an area to improve. Let's address it. Stoppage clearances. We ranked 12th last year, 9th at the moment. And the mid-season point, we ranked 14th. So that is an area that we did improve on from the mid-season, which is interesting. Marks was 14th last year. Now it's 7th, which dropped from 2nd mid-year. Inside 50s went from 12th to 8th. Again, another that dropped as we were ranked 5th at mid-year. Tackles, we ranked 15th last year and mid-season, but we brought it up to 13th. So that tackle pressure has gone up, which we like to see. And then to end it, which is a big one, tackles inside 50. Mate, we ranked 17th last year for that pressure in that part of the ground that you want to win the ball. We're now 5th, which drops from 3rd in the mid-season, but just an overall ridiculous jump from pretty much all these stats were like the worst in the AFL or bottom 4 or 5 to now be ranked in the top 8 for pretty much every single one of these stats. It kind of shows you where we came from. It's frustrating that we aren't in the 8 when you look at a lot of those being 2nd, 4th in a lot of these stats. But if you want the optimism, I mean, the improvement's there. With one preseason, who knows where we can jump from with one more. I think it's a sad end. It's not what we wanted, but the scope to improve is there. And I think you touched on this perfectly, so I kind of want to end on this point, which is we didn't know what we were going to get this season, and I'm glad, at least if you want to take some positive out of it, is we kind of know where we are now, and we've seen enough good to know that, mate, we're playing finals footy next year, and that's not even the ceiling. That's the floor.
Well said, mate. You've got me hyped up. Let's get it.
Absolutely love it. And I guess just to wrap this one up, we'll be doing so much content in the off season. So if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe so you don't miss. If you're on any streaming service, chuck the subscribe, follow button, whatever it is. Never miss an episode because we've got list analysis. We've got trade build-up, trade updates throughout the period, a review of that. I've been doing work hard analyzing this draft class. There'll be plenty of build-up discussion over that. And another review of the full list because we've seen Liam Stocker, Will Hayes go, we've seen some others. We'll be covering it all in this off season. And we might be getting some guests throughout as well. So let us know people that you want us to collaborate with throughout this because let's make this end of season big so we can lead into 2023. But that will wrap this episode up. See you guys next time.